The severed pig testicles hit the silk sheets with a wet slap that echoed through our bedroom like a judge's gavel. My wife Serena's scream could have shattered windows 3 houses down, and her boss Will's face turned the exact shade of green I'd been hoping for. Standing in my own doorway, watching them scramble undressed through a pile of farm-fresh revenge, I finally understood what satisfaction felt like. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to where this all started, with a lie so obvious it insulted my intelligence. My name is Nolan Grady, and 3 months ago, I thought I had a decent life. 41 years old, ex-Army communications specialist turned home automation consultant, married to a woman who used to laugh at my jokes. Our suburban house in Millbrook had the kind of manicured lawn that made neighbors jealous and a mortgage that kept me working 60-hour weeks. Serena worked as a social media manager for Pinnacle Realty, spending her days crafting Instagram posts about dream homes and luxury listings. At 39, she still turned heads at the grocery store, with her blonde hair always perfectly styled and her workout clothes that cost more than my monthly car payment. She was ambitious, charming, and lately, a complete stranger. The first red flag wasn't lipstick on my collar or mysterious phone calls. It was her sudden obsession with the gym. Serena, who once complained about walking to the mailbox, suddenly needed to hit the weights at 7 p.m. every Tuesday and Thursday. She'd come home glowing, her cheeks flushed, talking about her amazing trainer and how much stronger she felt. "You should come with me sometime," she'd say, toweling off her perfectly arranged workout hair. "Will says couples who exercise together stay together." Will, her boss, the guy who drove a BMW X7 and wore suits that cost more than most people's rent. I'd met him exactly twice, once at the company Christmas party where he barely acknowledged my existence, and once when he picked Serena up for a client emergency on a Sunday afternoon. The second red flag was the perfume. Not wearing it, that would have been too obvious. It was finding a bottle of Tom Ford Noir Pour Femme hidden behind her moisturizers. Still in its box, receipt tucked underneath, $300 for perfume she'd never worn around me. "It was a gift from the girls at work," she explained when I asked, not looking up from her phone. "You know how they are, with their fancy tastes." The third red flag was Pete. Pete Halpern had been my best friend since college. He tended bar at O'Malley's downtown, knew everyone's business, and had always been the guy I could count on for straight talk and cheap beer. Lately, though, his advice had been strange. "Maybe you're being paranoid, man," he'd say when I mentioned Serena's new habits. "Women go through phases. Let her have her gym thing." This from the same guy who once helped me catch my college girlfriend cheating by staking out her dorm for 3 nights straight. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in October. I was installing a new security system for the Hendersons next door. Motion sensors, cameras, the works, when I spotted Serena's white Lexus pulling into Will's driveway 2 streets over. I knew it was his house because I'd done his home automation 6 months earlier, back when he was just my wife's annoying boss, who insisted on explaining technology to the guy he'd hired to install it. I watched through my binoculars as Serena got out of her car, looked around nervously, then walked to his front door like she owned the place. She didn't knock. She had a key. My hands shook as I packed up my tools. 20 years in the Army had taught me patience, but this felt like sitting on a live grenade. I drove home, cracked open a beer, and waited. Serena came home at 10:30, her hair slightly messed up, her cheeks flushed in that same post-workout glow. She kissed my cheek and said she'd had an amazing session with her trainer. "Really pushed myself tonight," she said, heading straight for the shower. "I'm getting so much stronger." I sat in my workshop until midnight, staring at the wall and planning my next move. The security equipment I'd been installing all week suddenly looked very interesting. Motion sensors, hidden cameras, audio recording devices, all perfectly legal when installed in your own home. The next morning, while Serena was at her real job, I got to work. Installing surveillance equipment in your own house feels exactly as creepy as it sounds, but I'd moved past caring about moral gray areas. I placed a tiny camera in our bedroom bookshelf, angled to catch the bed but hidden behind my old Tom Clancy novels. A motion sensor went under the nightstand, programmed to send alerts to my phone, audio recording device in the bedside lamp. If Serena was bringing Will into our bed, I'd have proof. If I was wrong, I'd quietly remove everything and apologize to the universe for being a paranoid husband. The waiting was torture. Every time my phone buzzed with a motion alert, my heart hammered against my ribs. False alarms, Serena getting dressed, looking for something in the closet, our cat jumping on the bed. Normal married life, recorded and cataloged like evidence in a crime scene. I started following her. Not every day, not obviously. Just enough to confirm what I already knew. Tuesday and Thursday weren't gym days. They were Will days. I watched her car disappear into his garage. Watched the automatic door close behind her like a mouth swallowing my marriage whole. The first real evidence came on a Thursday night in November. Motion sensor triggered at 8:15 p.m. while I was supposedly at poker night with Pete and the guys. I'd actually been sitting in my car 3 blocks away watching Will's house when I got the alert. My blood turned to ice water. I drove home doing 90 on residential streets, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. But when I got there, the house was empty. No cars in the driveway, no lights on upstairs. I checked the camera footage on my laptop, hands shaking as I scrolled through the timeline. There, 8:16 p.m. Serena and Will, in my bedroom, on my bed, doing things that made me want to put my fist through the screen. "You're so much better than him," Serena's voice came through crystal clear on the audio. "He has no idea what he's missing." Will's laugh was the sound of breaking glass. "Poor fool probably thinks you're getting in shape for him." I watched my wife of 15 years mock me while screwing her boss in the bed I'd been sleeping in every night. The betrayal was one thing. I'd been preparing for that. But the casual cruelty, the laughter, the complete dismissal of our entire life together, that cut deeper than I'd expected. I made copies of everything. Multiple hard drives, cloud storage, USB sticks hidden in my workshop. Then I sat in my kitchen at 2 a.m., drinking whiskey and planning their destruction. The next morning, Serena came down for breakfast, glowing with that post-workout energy, chattering about her trainer's new routine. "He's really pushing me to try new positions," she said, buttering her toast. "I never knew I was so flexible." I nearly choked on my coffee. It sounds intense. "Oh, it is. Sometimes I can barely walk afterward." She kissed my forehead like a loving wife. "You should really meet him sometime. I think you'd like him." That afternoon, I called Pete and asked him to meet me at O'Malley's. I needed advice from my oldest friend, someone who'd help me figure out my next move. Pete listened to my story with the right expressions of shock and outrage, but something felt off. His suggestions were weak, almost like he was trying to talk me out of doing anything drastic. "Maybe you should just confront her," he said, wiping down the same glass for the 3rd time. "Could be a midlife crisis thing. People work through this stuff." "Work through it?" I stared at him. "Pete, she's been screwing her boss in our bed for months. This isn't a phase. I'm just saying divorce is expensive. Maybe there's another way." Old Pete would have helped me key Will's BMW and post flyers around town with their pictures. This Pete was acting like a marriage counselor. It bothered me, but I had bigger problems to worry about. I spent the weekend planning. Not just revenge, that was the easy part. I wanted something that would destroy them both, publicly and completely, without landing me in jail. Something that would make them understand exactly how it felt to be humiliated, betrayed, and discarded. The idea came to me Sunday night while I was grilling burgers in the backyard. My neighbor Frank was telling me about his problems with coyotes getting into his chicken coop. "Had to clean up the mess yesterday," he said, shaking his head. "They left parts everywhere. Looked like a horror movie. Parts. Pieces. Things that would shock and disgust and create exactly the kind of chaos I was looking for." I started making phone calls. My buddy Dave runs a small farm about 20 miles outside town, raising pigs and cattle for local restaurants. We'd served together in Middle East, and he owed me a favor from when I'd helped him set up his automated feeding systems. "You want what now?" Dave laughed when I explained what I needed. "Nolan, what the hell are you planning?" "Let's just say I've got a pest problem that needs a creative solution." "And you need pig testicles for this?" "About a dozen, yeah, fresh as possible." Dave was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You know what? I don't want to know. But I've got a batch going to processing tomorrow. I can save you some parts." "You're a good friend, Dave." "I'm a friend who minds his own business. There's a difference." While Dave handled the biological components, I worked on the mechanical side. A motion-triggered release mechanism, hidden in a decorative box under our bed. Simple spring-loaded design, that would pop open when someone lay down on the mattress. I tested it a dozen times with bags of flour, adjusting the sensitivity until it worked perfectly. The hardest part was predicting when they'd use our bed again. I couldn't exactly ask Serena for her cheating schedule, but patterns emerged from weeks of surveillance. Tuesday and Thursday were Will's house. Friday nights, when I was supposedly playing poker with Pete, they used our place. It was more comfortable, Serena had said in one of the recordings. More romantic than Will's bachelor pad. I picked Friday, December 8th. Told Serena I'd be at Pete's place all evening for our weekly game. Told Pete I was sick and couldn't make it. Spent the day preparing my surprise, and Dave delivered the goods Thursday afternoon packed in ice in a cooler that I immediately hid in my workshop. Pig testicles, as promised, plus a few other choice organs for good measure. The smell was exactly as awful as you'd expect, which made them perfect for my purposes. Friday evening, I loaded everything into the hidden box, set the trigger mechanism, and positioned my cameras for the best possible angles. Then I drove to the parking lot of a 24-hour diner 3 miles away and waited. The motion alert came at 8:47 p.m. I gave them 20 minutes to get comfortable, then drove home with my heart pounding like a war drum. The house was dark, except for the bedroom window. Serena's car was in the garage, Will's BMW parked boldly in our driveway, like he owned the place. I used my key quietly, slipped inside, and crept up the stairs. The sounds coming from our bedroom made my stomach turn, but I forced myself to wait. Timing was everything. At exactly 9:15, I heard Serena's voice. "Come here, baby. Let's try that thing you like." The bed creaked as they repositioned themselves. The motion sensor triggered. The box popped open, and my marriage exploded in the most beautiful, disgusting way possible. Serena's scream could have woken the dead in 3 counties. Will's reaction was even better. A high-pitched shriek that sounded like a smoke alarm having a nervous breakdown. I heard scrambling, cursing, the wet slap of body parts hitting the floor. I counted to 10, then flipped on the bedroom lights. "Evening, folks. How's everyone doing tonight?" The scene was everything I'd hoped for and more. Serena was pressed against the headboard, undressed and covered in pig organs, her face a mask of horror and disgust. Will was on the floor, frantically trying to wipe what looked like a spleen off his chest while hopping around on one foot. "What the hell is this?" Will shouted, his voice cracking like a teenager's. "What did you do?" "I'd call it performance art," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "Really captures the essence of your relationship, don't you think? Messy, disgusting, and full of pig parts." Serena found her voice. "Nolan, I can explain—" "Oh, please don't. I've got about 6 hours of audio recordings that already explained everything perfectly." I held up my phone. "Want to hear your greatest hits? I'm particularly fond of the part where you called me a poor fool who has no idea what he's missing." Will was trying to put his pants on while simultaneously gagging from the smell. "This is an attack. I'm calling the police." "With what? Your phone's downstairs and you're covered in pig testicles in another man's bedroom? I'm sure that'll be a fun conversation with the cops." "You're insane," Serena whispered. "Probably. But I'm insane with evidence, sweetie. Hours of video, audio recordings, timestamps, the works. Want to see how you look on camera? The lighting in here is really quite flattering." Will finally got his pants on and made a move toward me. I didn't budge. "I wouldn't," I said calmly. "This is my house, my bedroom, and my pig testicles. You're trespassing. I'm well within my rights to defend my property." "This isn't over," Will snarled. "Oh, but it is. See, here's what's going to happen. You're both going to get dressed, clean up this mess, and get out of my house. Then you're going to disappear from my life completely. No contact, no drama, no lawyers." "Or what?" Serena had found some defiance. I smiled. "Or I send copies of everything to Will's wife, your boss, your mother, and every social media platform I can find, plus a few choice neighbors who love a good story." The color drained from both their faces. "You wouldn't," Will said. "Try me. I've got nothing left to lose. Remember, you already took care of that." They got dressed in silence, moving around each other like strangers. Serena kept shooting me looks that could have melted steel, but I was past caring about her feelings. Will looked like he was going to throw up, which would have been the perfect cherry on top of this disaster Sunday. 20 minutes later, they were gone. Serena packed a bag and left without a word. Will peeled out of the driveway like he was fleeing a crime scene. I stood in my ruined bedroom, surveying the carnage, and started laughing. Deep, genuine belly laughs that echoed off the walls. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The video was a masterpiece. I edited it down to the essential moments, the box opening, the screaming, the scrambling, their horrified faces, added some tasteful music, blurred out the nudity for public consumption, and uploaded it to every local social media group I could find. The caption was simple: when you find out your wife's been working late with her boss. Sometimes the truth comes out in the most unexpected ways. Within 6 hours, it had 3,000 views. By morning, it was approaching 10,000. The comments were pure gold. OMG, is that Serena from Pinnacle Realty? I know that guy. He's my realtor's boss. This is the most savage revenge I've ever seen. What are those things that fell on them? Pig parts. I'm dying laughing. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. First call was from Serena. Take it down, she hissed. Take it down right now, or I'll sue you for everything you have. Sue me for what? Recording activities in my own bedroom? Good luck with that. This is maltreatment. This is consequences. There's a difference. She hung up. Will called 10 minutes later, trying to sound tough but failing miserably. You've destroyed my reputation, he said. My wife left me. My business partners are asking questions. This has to stop. Funny thing about reputations, I replied. They're usually built on truth. I just helped the truth come out a little faster than expected. I'll make you pay for this. Looking forward to it. The second wave hit when the local news picked up the story. Suburban revenge goes viral ran on the evening news, with my video blurred and edited but still recognizable. They interviewed random people on the street, most of whom thought it was hilarious. I mean, what did they expect? Said one woman. You don't mess around in someone else's bed and expect nothing to happen. Serena's mother called me that afternoon, her voice shaking with rage. How could you humiliate my daughter like this? She made a mistake, but this is cruel. Mrs. Patterson, your daughter spent months humiliating me in my own home. I just returned the favor. This isn't how decent people handle their problems. You're right. Decent people don't screw their boss in their husband's bed either, but here we are. She hung up on me too. I was starting to see a pattern. The real satisfaction came from the professional consequences. Will's real estate company dropped him after the video went viral, citing conduct unbecoming and damage to company reputation. Serena got fired the same day. Apparently having your affair broadcast to the entire town isn't great for business. I should have been satisfied. They were humiliated, unemployed, and facing divorce proceedings. Justice served, revenge complete. But then Pete called with some interesting news. Dude, you need to know something, he said, his voice strange. About Serena and Will. There's more to this story. We met at O'Malley's that evening. Pete looked nervous, fidgeting with his bar towel and avoiding eye contact. I should have told you sooner, he began, but I didn't know how deep this went until today. What are you talking about? Serena and Will. This wasn't just an affair, Nolan. They were planning to take you for everything. My blood went cold. Explain. Will's got connections with divorce lawyers, forensic accountants, the works. They were building a case to prove you were hiding assets, planning to claim emotional misuse, mental instability. They wanted to leave you with nothing. How do you know this? Pete looked away. Because Serena asked me to help. The bar went quiet around us. I stared at my oldest friend, trying to process what he'd just said. She asked you to help her destroy me. And you said what exactly? I said no, of course, but Nolan, she offered me money. A lot of money. And she said... He trailed off. She said what, Pete? She said you'd never find out, that after the divorce, there'd be opportunities for people who'd been loyal to her. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Opportunities. She knew about your sister Jennifer's business loan application. Said she could put in a good word with Will's banking contacts if I played along. Jennifer, my sister who'd been trying to get funding for her bakery for 2 years. The sister Pete had been asking about constantly, offering to help with her business plan, suggesting he could make some calls. How long? I asked quietly. How long what? How long have you been feeding her information about me? Pete's silence was answer enough. The poker nights I missed, my work schedule, when I'd be out of town. The pieces clicked together like a puzzle made of broken glass. You've been her inside source this whole time. It wasn't like that. What was it like, Pete? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my best friend helped my wife cheat on me so he could get close to my sister and her money. Nolan, listen. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Every conversation we'd had over the past months and replayed in my mind, but with new context. His weak advice about giving Serena space. His suggestions that I was being paranoid. His convenient excuses for why he couldn't help me investigate. You son of a witch, I said quietly. You've been playing both sides from the beginning. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me, Pete. Explain how helping my wife destroy me was somehow in my best interest. He couldn't. He sat there opening and closing his mouth like a fish out of water while the truth hung between us like smoke from a house fire. I walked out of O'Malley's and drove home, my hands shaking with rage. Serena and Will had been bad enough. But Pete's betrayal cut deeper because it was older, more calculated. He'd been planning this for months, maybe years. Well, if Pete wanted to play games, I'd show him how they were really played. The plan came together over the next week like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Pete thought he was smart, playing multiple angles, but he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated how well I knew him. Pete had a weakness for grand gestures and public displays. He'd proposed to his ex-girlfriend Sarah at a packed baseball game. He'd quit his last job by announcing it over the restaurant's PA system. When Pete made a move, he made sure everyone was watching. I could use that. First, I needed to get Serena and Pete in the same place. That required some careful manipulation and a few strategic lies. I called Serena on Wednesday morning, putting on my most defeated voice. We need to talk, I said. About the divorce, the house, all of it. I can't keep fighting anymore. Finally coming to your senses? Her voice was cold, but I could hear the satisfaction underneath. Maybe, look, I know you and Pete have been coordinating. He told me about the financial stuff, the lawyers. I get it, I'm outnumbered. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you want, Nolan? To end this without destroying each other completely, meet me at the house Friday night, 8 o'clock. We'll figure out terms that work for everyone. Everyone. You, me, Pete, Will if he wants to come. Let's get it all out in the open. She agreed, probably thinking this was her chance to finish me off completely. I called Pete next, using a similar approach. I know what you did, I told him, but I also know why you did it. Jennifer's business, the money troubles, all of it. I'm not happy, but I understand. Nolan, I never meant for it to go this far. I believe you. Look, Serena's coming to the house Friday night to talk divorce terms. I think you should be there too. We're all adults here. We can work something out. You sure about this? I'm tired, Pete. Tired of fighting, tired of being angry. Let's just end this thing. He bought it completely. Friday afternoon, I made my final preparations. The bedroom had been cleaned and restored, but I'd made some new additions. Hidden cameras in multiple locations, audio recording equipment, and one special surprise that would make the pig testicles look like amateur hour. I'd also sent a few strategic invitations. Nothing obvious, just casual mentions to neighbors about finally resolving things with Serena, and how they might hear some raised voices, but not to worry, Mrs. Henderson next door was the biggest gossip on the block. By evening, half the neighborhood would be listening for drama. Serena arrived at exactly 8 o'clock, looking confident and polished. She'd brought a folder full of papers and that predatory smile she used on difficult clients. Where's Pete? She asked, settling into the living room like she still lived there. Running late. He'll be here. Will showed up 10 minutes later, looking uncomfortable, but trying to project authority. He'd dressed for business. Expensive suit, leather briefcase, the whole intimidation package. Let's get this over with, he said, not bothering to shake my hand. Pete arrived last, nervous energy radiating off him like heat from a furnace. He kept glancing between Serena and me, trying to read the room. So, Serena said, spreading her papers on the coffee table, we've prepared a settlement offer that we think is fair. I looked at the numbers. They wanted the house, both cars and my business equipment, and 70% of our savings. In return, I'd get to keep my clothes and my dignity, assuming I had any left. Interesting, I said, but I've got a counteroffer. I pulled out my laptop and turned it toward them. On the screen was a video compilation, not the pig testicle incident, but something new. Weeks of surveillance footage showing Pete entering my house when I wasn't home, going through my office, photographing documents, Audio recordings of phone conversations between Pete and Serena, planning their strategy, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate me. The room went dead silent. You see, I continued conversationally. While you three were busy planning my destruction, I was documenting yours. Pete, that's breaking and entering, by the way. Serena, that's conspiracy to commit fraud. Will, well, you're just an accessory, but I'm sure we can find something. Pete's face had gone white. You can't use that. It's illegal recording. Actually, it's not. Security cameras in my own home, recording people who entered without permission. Perfectly legal. The audio from Pete's phone calls? He was in my house using my Wi-Fi. Also legal. Serena was staring at the screen, watching herself plot my downfall in high definition. What do you want? I want you all to understand something very important, I said, standing up and walking to the window. You thought I was weak, stupid, easy to manipulate and discard. You were wrong. I opened the window and called out to the street, where I could see several neighbors pretending to work in their yards. Hey everyone, could you come over here for a minute? I've got something to show you. What are you doing? Will hissed. Giving you the audience you deserve. Mrs. Henderson arrived first, followed by the Johnsons from across the street, then the Martinez family from 2 doors down. Within minutes, I had a dozen neighbors crowded into my living room, all curious about the drama they'd been expecting. Thanks for coming, everyone, I said cheerfully. I wanted you all to meet the people who've been working so hard to destroy my life. This is my wife, Serena, her boss, Will, and my former best friend, Pete. I turned the laptop screen toward the crowd and hit play. The first video showed Pete going through my desk, photographing financial documents. The second was audio of him and Serena planning to claim I was mentally unstable. The third was Serena and Will discussing how to hide assets before the divorce. The neighbors watched in fascination, like they were binge-watching a particularly juicy reality show. Mrs. Henderson was taking notes. Now, I continued, these three had a plan. They were going to take my house, my business, my savings, and leave me with nothing. They thought I was too stupid to figure it out. I walked over to Pete, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the couch cushions. Pete here was my inside man. 20 years of friendship, and he sold me out for a chance at my sister's business loan and whatever else Serena promised him. Nolan, please, Pete whispered. Please what? Please don't tell everyone how you betrayed your best friend. Please don't mention how you were feeding information to my cheating wife. Please don't explain how you were planning to move in on my sister once I was out of the picture. The crowd murmured appreciatively. This was better than cable television. I turned to Serena and Will. And you too. Not content with just having an affair, you had to try to destroy me financially too. Emotional misuse claims, hidden asset accusations, mental instability. Very thorough. Serena stood up, her composure finally cracking. Stop this. You've made your point. Have I? Because I don't think I have. I walked back to the laptop and pulled up one more video. This one showed all three of them in my kitchen 2 weeks ago, when I was supposedly out of town. They were celebrating, toasting with my expensive whiskey, talking about how easy it had been to fool me. This was taken last Thursday, I announced to the room. While I was allegedly visiting my sick aunt in Portland, these three were here, in my house, drinking my liquor, and planning my destruction. The neighbors were eating this up. Mr. Johnson was recording everything on his phone. Mrs. Martinez was already texting someone, probably spreading the news to the rest of the block. Pete finally found his voice. Okay, you got us. What do you want? I smiled. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You wanted to play games with my life? Fine. Now everyone gets to see what kind of people you really are. I turned to address my audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you 3 individuals who thought they could conspire against a neighbor, friend, and husband with no repercussions. They thought wrong. Serena was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Will looked like he wanted to punch me, but was too scared to try with witnesses present. Pete just sat there, staring at his hands. The best part, I continued, is that everything they did is documented, time-stamped, and backed up in multiple locations. Every conversation, every plan, every betrayal. All perfectly legal evidence that will make any divorce proceedings very interesting. I closed the laptop and looked at my 3 conspirators. So here's my counteroffer. You leave my house right now and never contact me again. You drop any legal action, any financial claims, any attempts at revenge. In return, I won't press charges for breaking and entering, conspiracy, or fraud. And if we don't, Will asked, then I release everything publicly, send copies to the police, and let the legal system sort it out. Your choice. They chose wisely. All three of them left within 10 minutes, slinking out of my house like beaten dogs, while my neighbors watched and whispered. Pete tried to say something as he passed me, but I just stared at him until he kept walking. After they were gone, I thanked my neighbors for coming and sent them home with plenty to talk about. Mrs. Henderson lingered, clearly hoping for more details, but I politely ushered her out. Then I sat in my living room, surrounded by the wreckage of my old life, and started planning my new one. The house would go on the market next week. I'd already found a nice place across town, closer to my sister's bakery and far from the memories of Serena and Pete. My business was doing well. The viral video had actually brought in new clients who appreciated my creative problem-solving skills. As for my 3 former conspirators, I heard through the neighborhood gossip network that Pete had been fired from O'Malley's after word got around about his side activities. Serena had moved back in with her mother, who was apparently less than thrilled about the whole situation. Will was facing his own divorce proceedings and had left town entirely. Justice served, revenge complete, and I was finally free to move forward. I poured myself a glass of the good whiskey, the bottle they hadn't finished, and raised it in a toast to my empty house. To new beginnings, I said aloud, and to the beautiful, messy, satisfying end of old ones. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Henderson telling someone on the phone about the evening's entertainment. By tomorrow, the whole story would be neighborhood legend. I couldn't have asked for a better finale.